I was held hostage for one day, and for that whole 6 or 7 hours, I was physically abused by my ex-partner. I had my girlfriend staying with me. She sat me down and she said, if you don't get out of this situation, you're going to be one of the women on the news that's dead.
Tiarny Strachan is a women's leadership coach and domestic violence survivor who was held hostage and nearly killed by her former partner. She now helps women escape toxic relationships and rebuild their self-worth.
My whole life, I've owned multiple different businesses, so I've always had that side of me being quite masculine. I definitely feel like I was more so masculine than feminine for a lot of my life. But what I've come to realize with the right person that brings that femininity out in you and is able to hold a strong, safe space for you to be feminine, I truly believe that that is the dynamics of a healthy, long-lasting relationship.
What are you excited about with your business and moving forwards?
It's my purpose to help women and children in this life around DV. I always thought it was just around DV, but that's not the more healing that I've done. It's just generally, I want to help women and children.
Does it change something in someone? And you'll be able to answer this from your experience. You said the third time he strangled you, you just give up. You thought, this is it, I'm dying. To then survive that, does that change something in you today? Just the way you operate or like your mindset?
Tiarny, 1 in 6 women in Australia have experienced domestic violence, which is obviously shocking. So our first question is, what does Tiarny today wish she could say to Tiarny then when she was in that situation?
I guess what I would say is you're about to experience the most pivotal experience in your life. And at that moment, it probably would have felt like the most painful, and I was going through a lot of suffering at the time. But because of that pain and suffering, what I acquired from that experience is actually going to reinvent who I am and be the woman I needed to be for me then.
Love it. Take us back. Like for women listening to this, how does someone find themselves in that situation? And what are the potential signs that were there, but you maybe didn't understand were signs at the time?
Yeah, and this is a hard one because it looks so different for everybody experience because, at the end of the day, abuse doesn't just look like physical abuse. And I guess that's what's hard is because I actually read something the other day and it said the good times were a part of the abuse as well. And you don't realize that until after, because the thing is, if it was all hard from the start, you wouldn't be there. You know what I mean? If someone done something physical to you, you'd probably be like, okay, I'm not really that deeply connected to them, so I'm going to walk away. Whereas it doesn't look like that at the start. It looks like them mirroring what you want in life and then love bombing you. I don't know if you know the exact cycles of what abuse looks like, but it's really beautiful at the start. You literally think you have found the most incredible person, your person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, because that's how they show up. And it's not until probably usually about 3 months later is when I guess you can start seeing the gaps in their behavior. Then you start getting the devaluing, degrading, the criticizing, and it just slowly happens. It literally happens so slowly you don't even realize that it's happening until you're probably about 6 months down the line and you're like, who even am I? I've completely lost myself. I'm isolated myself, because the thing is, abuse is something where, if I talk to a girlfriend or a friend and I actually express what was really going on, what would they say? Probably leave. So it's like you want to isolate yourself so you don't make them look like the bad person. So it kind of goes in this cycle. And then for me, what I experienced was I had no idea what was going on. And then 6 months down the track, I was like, shit, there's something not right here. And how do I help you? I want to help you because I love you. And I guess that's how it starts.
Yeah, you must feel like you get so far in and then you're stuck. And then when your friends are potentially saying, leave this person, because that's your person, do you almost go into a state of defending them as well?
Well, I think at the start, 100%, I definitely did. That was my experience. And I am really, really close to my family. I've got a great family. The thing is, had never experienced abuse in my life. I come from a beautiful, loving household. My dad, I've got an extremely great role model as a father. So going into that relationship, I had no idea what the signs were, what to look for, or what even was abuse. I literally didn't even know what the meaning of abuse was because I'd never seen it before. So I think that was something that was quite hard and had me stuck in it for longer, is because I look at my mum and dad, they're still together. They have been since I was 15.
Awesome.
And I'm like, what a relationship looks like to me is commitment, loyalty. Like if there's something wrong with the relationship, let's fix it. Let's do it together. You know, that was my mentality. So then going into a relationship where not only did I know that he was addicted to meth, and I, again, didn't even know what that drug was. I also hadn't had a drug background. I hadn't used drugs before, party drugs or anything. So I was like, for me, I was figuring out what these patterns and behaviors looked like. Not only the subtle abuse that was starting, but also the drug abuse and also alcohol that was playing a huge part in that whole cycle.
Wow. I'm trying to think of what I would have been done in your shoes if I was a friend. And then I'm trying to think, what did the people around you do at the time? Because the family you've got seem amazing. So I'm sure, and I can imagine your mum, I bet she'd be a sweet angel. I can imagine what she would try to kind of tell you at the time. Like, did that feedback come? And then when it did, how did you?
No, to be honest, I didn't tell anyone.
Sure.
And no one does. Like that is a huge part of the isolation when you're going through abuse, because again, it's confusing. You don't know what you're going through. I did voice it to a few friends, but like it was never like leave. It was always like, again, it wasn't physical yet. So it wasn't abuse, right? That's what everyone thinks, is because it's not, I'm not being hit or, you know, slapped or whatever that might look like. It wasn't abuse. So no, I didn't really get that because it wasn't that extreme at that time. And it wasn't until, I call it the event in my life, is when I actually was physically abused. I was held hostage for one day for about 6 or 7 hours. And for that whole 6 or 7 hours, I was physically abused by my ex-partner. And it wasn't until the 2 weeks leading up that I had my best friend, actually. My best friend had come and stayed. It was the holidays. We had the kids there. He was on a bender, like on a meth bender. So I didn't even know what that looked like, you know, like he was coming back. He was, the behavior that was happening at that time was wild. Like he'd make me have my location settings on. I remember one day specifically, I went with my best friend and the kids to Wet and Wild. And we were just having a great day, you know, and I was like, yes, I need to get out of the house. And she knew everything that was going on. And he called me and he was like, where are you? You've turned your location settings off. I'm like, no, they're on. And he was like, no, well, you're not where you say you are, and was like full just wigging out. And I was like, okay, like I have to go back home. Like it was almost like you then click into this survival mode where you have to keep the peace, because I knew in my heart of hearts that the people around me were about to be affected, because that's how far gone he had been. Like he's still been going on a 2-week bender. So his unpredictability with his behavior, you just don't know what he's going to do. So that week, 2 weeks leading up to that time, I had my girlfriend staying with me. And like I said, there was so many things that were happening at this time. I was literally hiding numbers like of my friends in shoes just in case. Like he took my phone off me, just like silly little things like that. But I realized that it was like, I'm protecting myself because I don't even know if I'm going to survive this, you know? And I remember probably a week prior to that happening, I called my kid's dad. That was the first time I told him what was going on. Everyone was pretty aware of what's going on. And I said, look, I want you to have the kids. I don't know how long for, but what I'm experiencing right now, I just need to get through it and I need the kids to be safe. And just before my girlfriend left, she sat me down and she said, Tiarny, you need to get out of this situation. If you don't get out of this situation, you're going to be one of the women on the news that's dead. So that was probably the first time that I had from my friends, and she was probably the only one that knew to the extent of what I was going through. So for her to say that to me, I knew that she was right, but it was also like, I don't know how to get out of this.
That situation where he held you hostage, is that the situation you openly refer to where it nearly cost you your life?
Yes. Yeah.
Why did he do it?
Why? Because he lost control of me. So that day, it had been the 3 days of COVID. It had already been back and forth prior to that. COVID, I went and stayed. I actually moved out. I called my dad that week before and I said, Dad, can you come get my stuff? We lived together in an apartment. I said, Dad, can you come and get my stuff? I need to leave. Grabbed my stuff, moved my stuff out, and he called me and he's like, I really need your help. Like, I need you to take me to therapy and things, all the things to get me back. And I was like, okay, I'll come and stay with you for the 3 days over COVID because it was the shutdown. And the 3 days I said, you have to get off whatever you're on and be sober and I can try and help you through this. So he stopped that for the 3 days. And then the third day, everything opened and he had gone through this whole process of thinking that I've cheated on him for the last 2 weeks. This is where this had all started, is that I was cheating on him. And then that day, he was like, the day that I was able to leave the house and COVID, that unlocked, what is it called? The
lockdowns.
Yeah, the lockdowns we were able to leave the house. He basically said, with Telstra, he contacted Telstra and he wanted the 3 months worth of my phone data. So they can't just give it to you. Like, they don't just email it to you. It takes 3 days to get that information. So he was like, can you get me that stuff sent? And I was like, yeah, no worries. I was like, I'll get that stuff. I've got nothing to hide. And then he just started, just going in his little cycle. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually done with this. Like, I'm finally actually within myself. I'm done. Like, why do I need to give you my phone data? There's no need for it. I was like, okay, I'm actually done. Grabbed my stuff and went to a girlfriend's house. And I literally sat at my girlfriend's house and it wasn't far away, but he didn't know where I was. Turned my location settings off. He had my passwords, literally Facebook, Instagram, like absolutely everything, right? So I changed everything and I was like, no, I was fully done. So I was like, okay. So about 3 hours later, my mum and dad live out of town. So I was waiting for my parents to come get me from my girlfriend's house. And then 3 hours later, I was sitting at my girlfriend's and I see that someone's logged into my location settings. And I was like, here we go. I got a phone call from him and he said, I know where you are. I'm coming to get you. And I was like, no, you're not. I was like, just leave me alone. I'm done. He's like, Tiarny, I really need help. Take me to the hospital. I'm not okay. I was like, you know what? It is not my responsibility anymore. You can take yourself to the hospital, call your parents, call your friends. I'm done. Like, I'm completely done. I was like, stop logging into my stuff. Anyway, obviously he knew where I was. My girlfriend was like, let's call the police. Like, he's going to come here. He's going to get you. And I was like, I know he is, but he's around the corner, so I need to go. And I literally remember her looking at me being like, Tiarny, you're not going to come back. She was like, I could just feel it. I could feel that something really bad was about to happen. So I grabbed my stuff. I walked downstairs. I was literally waiting for him. And I said to my girlfriend, look, if you haven't heard from me in the next few hours, just call the police. You know where I'm going to be. So when I walked downstairs, he was hiding in the bush, literally grabbed me, pulled me by the arm and grabbed my stuff and chucked it in the back of the car. I jumped in the back of the car, forced into the back of the car. I could smell the alcohol so within 3 hours, he was just absolutely pissed, wrecked. Got in the car. There was like an intersection. There was cars coming everywhere. He was driving insane. Like, I don't even know how we got back. That's how insane he was driving. Drove through the intersection, got down to the bottom level of the apartment. The whole time he said in the car, he was like, I don't know why you got in the car with me because what did he say? He just kept on saying, you're so stupid for getting in the car with me because you're not about to live and I'm going to bash your face in and all the things. I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but just saying the most, horrible, horrible things to me on the way there. And I was kind of like, at the time in the car, I was like, oh, you're overreacting or you're driving a bit stupid, like settle down. Like, I didn't really think it was too bad at that time. It wasn't until I actually got out of the car, we got in the elevator and he was like swaying and I looked at his eyes and his eyes were like black rolled over. I didn't know that was a thing. It's called like the black eye, but it's literally like, it looks like their soul had left their body and they're just not there anymore. So it wasn't until I actually looked at him and I was like, fuck. I was like, you're too far gone. So yeah, got up to the apartment. Again, I was a little bit like, you know, I wasn't too concerned. Like I was concerned, but I wasn't like fearing for my life at this point. I got up to the apartment and he was like, look, you're not going to leave this apartment until we get the 3 days, wait for 3 days for the data to come back from Telstra. And I'm like, I'm not staying here for 3 days. I said, I'm leaving. And that was the first time he grabbed me. I guess that abuse started over the 7 hours and sat me down. He put my phone on the counter and he said to call my kid's dad, to get my kid's dad. Again, I have no idea where this behavior was coming from. He was so unpredictable and what's the other word for it? Very erratic. Yeah. So the whole phone thing was coming up quite a lot, him consistently saying that you're not going anywhere until we get the phone data. I want to see every single person that you've called, every single person that's called you. And then had my phone on the bench and basically said, call your kid's dad. I want them to come here because I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill your kids, but I'm going to kill you first and I'm going to kill you in front of your kids. So it wasn't until that moment when he actually said that and was trying to get me to call the kid's dad that I was a little bit like set back. Not only he wasn't the first kind of like physical abuse, he kind of like grabbed me and pulled me and sat me down at our table. So I was like, you know, that wasn't too bad, but it was enough to kind of like rattle me and be like, okay, like he's being serious. I need to take this really seriously. But it wasn't until I was like, no, I'm not going to call the kids. Like why do the kids need to come here? He grabbed my phone because I didn't call the kids and whacked me over the side of the face for the first time with quite some power, which then knocked me off the chair and I fell down on the back of the chair. So that was kind of like, then I realized what I was actually in for. And like really looking at him in the eye, I was like, he's not even here anymore. So because he's not in his mind, he looked like his soul had left his body. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it out of here. So basically that was just the start of him reoccurringly. I sat me back down on the chair. He did that probably about 3 more times with the trying to call the kids. Thank God the kid's dad did not answer. But when he kind of got over the kid's dad not answering, then it was all the focus was then on me. He said he had a gun in the bedroom. So there was a few times that I got up. The first time actually I said, I'm not doing this. Like you've gone too far. And I knew that he knew he'd gone too far as well. So I got up and I went to leave, like walk out the door, and he grabbed me, dragged me back inside and said, you're not going anywhere. We're staying here for 3 days until I get what I want. So that was the first time I tried to leave. And once I tried to leave and he didn't let me leave, that's when I kind of like accepted what I was about to go through. And I was like preparing myself mentally and also physically with what I was about to go through. So, so for about the next 4 hours, it was basically me and him running around. He was chasing me with a knife. I had our marble bench flipped over on top of me. I couldn't get up. I was stuck there for quite some time. He kicked the absolute shit out of me. By that time, I couldn't hear out of my left ear. He had kicked me, punched me, you name it. And once I got off the top of the table, he dragged me into a couch and strangled me for the first time. And I started screaming, and like we lived in an apartment 14 floors up. And I was like, trying to scream, and he was like, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save you. And just kept on looking me in the eyes when he was strangling me, saying no one's coming to save me. And it kind of got to a point where it was like I had no voice. It was really strange. Like, yes, I was screaming, and yes, I was trying to get away from him, but he was so fucking powerful. Like, there was no way. Like, every time he pulled me onto the couch, he was sitting on top of me. So it's not like me just wriggling or trying to get out. There was no way I could do anything. So the first time after running around, I was like, after being strangled, I couldn't really breathe. And then basically he said he was going to get the gun and shoot me. So he strangled me 3 times in total. But the third time, I remember I was just exhausted. I was literally crawling on the ground from sitting on the ground and went on the couch and like crawled up on the couch. And I remember him coming over to me and I couldn't really breathe. He strangled me for the 3rd time. And I just remember looking in his eyes and thinking, this is the day that I die. This is it for me. Like, I actually accepted that day I wasn't going to leave that apartment. That was when I was going to die. And when he was strangling me, after he'd just taken his hands off me, that was the time that I couldn't breathe. I was gasping for air. And I was like, I was done. I gave up. I was like, I am just going to now just sit here and let him do what he has to do, because he was pacing around like a crackhead would, pacing around just knowing that he had gone way too far. And it was kind of like he'd gone so far that he couldn't go back anymore. Mm. So I just knew that, you know, he's already been strangling me. Like, the next thing is like, I was like, am I going to get flicked off the balcony? Like, what's next, you know? But yeah, after the 3rd time he strangled me, I actually was sitting there and I thought about my kids. And like I said, I had given up in that moment. I had 100% given up, but I thought about my kids and I was like, you know what? There's no fucking way that I'm going to leave my kids. I'm not going to leave them without a mother. So I was like, I have to try and get out of here. Like, whatever that looks like, let's fucking do it, you know? So I remember he was going to get the gun. So he said that it was time. He was going to get the gun, in which I knew he owned guns. So I believed that fully. Mm. He had my phone. He went and grabbed it off. So there was like a door here to the balcony and our bedroom door here. He had my phone and he said, I'm going to go get rid of the phones. I'm going to get rid of evidence. I'm going to go get the gun and I'm going to shoot you. Like, it's time. And I was like, all right, it's time. Like, he walked over, grabbed my phone, and as soon as I seen he grabbed my phone, he went and threw it off the balcony. As soon as he went out on the balcony, I got up and I fucking ran out the door. I ran down the flight of stairs. Obviously, I would never have made it if I went in the elevator, and I have never ran so fast in my fucking life. Like, I was just in survival. My shirt was ripped. Like, it looked like I'd just been absolutely beaten, and ran down 14 flights of stairs. And I was so fucking petrified because I thought that he would have got the elevator and like met me down there.
The movies.
Oh, and ran out the lobby, and I actually ran to an IGA that was probably a few minutes like around the corner. But I was so fucking petrified because I was like, he wanted to go after my kids. That's what he consistently kept on saying. So it wasn't over. I got to the IGA and I just literally just dropped on the floor, and a couple of the guys from the IGA came over and was assisting me, and I was just in all sorts. They called the police. And the police took them like not long to get there. But even once the police got there, I was just in all sorts. I said, he's trying to get my kids. Like, he knows where they live. Like, please, like. So in the meantime, where I was at the IGA, he'd actually come downstairs, and I didn't realize this is a huge thing. So it was on the news and things like this in Brisbane, but he'd actually gone down the elevator, gone downstairs, pulled an Uber driver out of his car, bashed an Uber driver and stole a car to get away. And the police were like, surrounding him basically and got him. So again, it wasn't until I seen him and I heard over the police officer's radio that they had got him, but that was still probably about 20 minutes after I'd got to the IGA. So for that whole 20 minutes, it was just like me sitting there just thinking that he's just gone to get my kids. And so, once I seen him get taken into the paddy wagon, that was, I guess, a relief for me in that moment. But I didn't realize that that was not the end.
Oh, fuck. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I went back.
Oh.
Yeah. Look at your face.
So he didn't go to prison for that?
He did.
He did?
Yes.
And he came out?
Yes, but so he went to court. He was in lockup for a few days. Look, the next few months were really interesting. They say, I don't know if you know about narcissist behavior. And again, I say that very loosely, the word narcissism, because everyone has traits of it, right? But there's people that have higher traits of it. And that was definitely, he had higher traits of it. But it says that it comes from somewhere, right? His mum, his family were very calculated, moved very calculated after all of this. Not only probably 2 months that he got done for that, he got done for some other drug dealing charges, which that meant that not only did he have all these, like he had some really insane charges with me, but then he's got all this drug stuff as well. So we didn't speak for about 3 months, but I was going through some really emotional stuff after that. I mean, I say this all the time, but it was like I was grieving someone that was still alive. I had so many questions, like why did the person that I love, like I had to run from the person that I loved, somebody that I thought that was going to protect me, I had to run from. And I was really confused. I was confused how it all got to this point, what he was thinking. And still, I justified it because of the drugs. I was like, he's just not in his right frame of mind. He was on drugs. That drug's evil. I blamed the drugs. So I was going through my own process at the time. And like, I just wanted him to get better because I knew that he wasn't mentally okay. And again, it was just all about him. There was nothing about me or what I've just been through. There was no, self-love or anything for myself. It was just all about him. And 3 months later, he wasn't supposed to contact me at all. Police put a police protection order. So it's a step up from a DVO. A DVO is just you put a DVO on someone. This was like the police actually put you on this. And so we weren't supposed to contact each other. He contacted me and asked if we'd like to catch up and talk about everything that we'd gone through. And of course I said yes. I had lots of questions. Again, justifying the drug. I was like, it's not him. It was the drugs. He was on drugs. So 3 months later, we caught up, and basically he did the whole, I'm so sorry, like I've gone to rehab, I've done all these things now, I'm better, I want to be with you, blah, 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 all the things. But what turned out is he was going through court, obviously, for what he did to me. When he did reach out, which I wish I'd known what I know now, but we were going through mediation to drop his charges. I was actually trying to drop his charges.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you think?
Because I think that, and I know that a lot of women in DV relationships would agree with this, but they're not all bad. We see these moments and these snippets of the potential, or when they are beautiful, when they are soft. So yes, there's this horrible thing that just happened, but being in an intimate relationship with somebody, you also see a different side of them that other people don't see. So when I wanted to drop the charges, what was going through my mind is like, I want him to get better. If he goes to jail, my thought process was, if he goes to jail, it's not doing anything. He's not getting any help. He needs to go to rehab. He needs to get professional help to actually move forward in life, not just get chucked in jail. Like, that was genuinely what I thought at the time. And again, I still have that belief, but also for certain circumstances. And so, yeah, we tried to drop the charges, but the universe works in beautiful ways, and I'm very, very grateful for that. So his parents actually got me a lawyer. So they were like, I'm going to pay for everything for you to drop the charges. Yes, this is what I mean. It's all calculated, right? I just didn't realize it at the time. So his parents paid for a lawyer for me to be able to fight his lawyer, thinking that, that lawyer that they got is going to benefit him. Whereas Christy, I'm so close to her and I'm very, very, very grateful for her, because she helped me at a time that I didn't even know what to do. She kept me really level-headed with all of the court stuff, and also made me realize my self-worth through this. So we went
Christy?
Christy's the lawyer that
lawyer.
the parents, that his parents paid
got
for.
for you.
Yeah. So it actually kind of like backfired on them because she was obviously working for me. And she basically, they were asking for compensation, they were asking for all these things and dropping charges. She was like, Tiarny, doesn't matter even if you want to drop charges, there's absolutely no way that you can. The severity of these charges is insane. What you've been through is actually insane. It was kind of like she was the person that made me realize that I didn't have to justify what I'd gone through, because I did. I justified everything. I didn't think it was that bad. I really didn't think it was that bad until I rewatched. They actually made me sit down and watch the footage on the police camera on his shirt. So they made me see myself, which was really fucking powerful, because obviously I was going through that at the time, but I didn't see it for what it was because I had so much emotional attachment to the situation. So there was a few things that she did through that process that made me realize that what I've actually just gone through is actually horrific, and not a lot of women can be here to tell that story. And I'm lucky enough to do so. But she really did see me for who I was and the woman that I was, and she helped guide me through that. So if it wasn't for her, I probably would have kept trying to drop the charges, but I'm really, really glad that I didn't. We ended up going through the process. It took 2 years. After 6 months of going back to him, there was a few things that actually happened. It just organically faded out, and I just said it wasn't the drugs. But I needed that. I actually needed to go back and see that for myself, that it wasn't drugs, that yes, drugs amplify things 100%, but that's just who he was. And not only that, I knew that his behavior wasn't normal, like as in like normal human behavior wasn't okay. He actually got diagnosed with schizophrenia and split personality disorder. So after that, he was on all these medications to get all that right. So I was like, it was kind of like I finally got answers. I finally got answers of what I just went through, that I wasn't fucking crazy, that what I went through I wasn't crazy. Like his behavior, the manipulation, the gaslighting, all the things that he was doing to me, there was a reason for that, not to be justified, but I finally had answers.
Part of dropping the charges, is that because over the period of time that the abuse was happening, and this might be the case for a lot of DV cases or DV victims, do you just lose so much self-worth
100%.
as well? Like, it's not just, hey, there's great parts of him.
Yeah.
It's almost that being
don't know
scared
who
of
you
being
are.
on your own.
Yeah. You don't know who you are anymore. Like before, I guess the way that I explain it is, before I have had businesses since I was 17-year-old. I did have a great relationship with my kid's dad. So I knew what healthy, I had people in my life that role modeled great relationships. So I knew what that looked like. I also knew my potential. I'd grown, multiple different businesses prior to going into that relationship. I was quite independent. So there was a lot of evidence for me to look back on and go, you can do all of this yourself. Like, you don't need anyone. You don't have to rely on anyone. But it gets to a point where they almost make you feel so isolated that you can't rely on anyone else but them. And it's like you're in this bubble with them. It's like they're allowed to go and do these things. They're allowed to go and see their friends, but you don't. You isolate yourself from your friends, your family. You don't talk about certain things. Like, I was lying. We were going to couples therapy after everything happened. And I was lying in couples therapy just to make him look better, just so we didn't get back in the car after couples therapy and he fucking loses it at me. You know,
were going to couples therapy after.
Yeah, so that was a part of the mediation, that if we were like together, that we had to do couples therapy together. So we did that after. We did like a few, and that the therapist basically every single time was looking at me being like, what are you doing?
Do you look back now and go like, what?
100%.
Fuck?
What's actually crazy to me now is the women that I work with are going through really similar stuff, but I can see a situation for what it is now, because not only have I gone through the emotional side, the financial side, and the physical side. There's the psychological. Like, I've been through it all. I just didn't know what all of these terms meant. So now that I've gone through it, I can see something and be like, that's not it, you know. But what's really interesting is the women that are going through this now, it's actually really healing for me to go through this with them. And that's something that I know that Ben also experiences that with the men he works with, but it's only just recently that I've actually been working in this space with the women going through DV or just toxic relationship in general. But for me, I've found that it's been quite healing.
Fuck, that is mind-blowing. I'm literally just saying my jaw to the floor. Like, it's outrageous that happens, but what baffles me more so is how well you can talk about it and how the passion now to go and do and help people who've been in the same boat.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. And I'm flipping this again. I'm thinking of someone who's working a shit corporate job, who hates their job, and there's just no zest for life, and doesn't matter what they do at work. The big beast is never going to change. If they do a really good job or a shit job, nothing changes. And then you go on the other end of the scale and you've got you, who's literally living your passion, right? And the people you're helping, you'd never have Sunday scaries, put it that way.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Two Blokes, One Business podcast.
Now, apart from being world-class podcasters, we also run a recruitment agency called Harwell.
If you're keen to learn a little bit more about what we do, then head over to our Instagram at Harwell Group and check us out.
Back to the app.
Well, I always actually wanted, probably like 2 years into my healing journey. By the way, what is healing? I didn't even know what the fuck healing was, and how do you even heal from that? How do you heal from somebody that has physically abused you that you once loved? So it took me about 2 years. I always say I'm the one who put myself through pain and suffering for those 2 years, because I did not do any healing. I was literally running away. That was a part of my life. I turned to drugs and alcohol. The friends at the time that I had were just in that party scene, drug dealers, like all of that. Then I just went through that phase of my life. I was a mum, but it was kind of like there was so much pain in my body that was like, nobody was home. The lights were on, but literally nobody was home. I was just so vacant. So 2 years it took me to kind of get over my shit and be like, I can't keep living like this, because it just got to a point where, like, I've never been suicidal. No, I've never like thought about killing myself, but there were definitely times or nights where I was like, you know what, I would be okay if I didn't wake up, because I just didn't know how to process that pain. And it wasn't until I started going through my healing journey about 2 years after is when that I actually started processing everything. And I always knew that I wanted to step into women's empowerment. And I did try actually 2 years after, but I wasn't ready. I literally couldn't talk about it. I still get triggered. And I was like, how can I hold space for other women when I haven't done the work yet? So I was like, I'm going to put that to the side. I knew it was something I was always going to step into, and I knew it was my purpose. Like, I honestly, which is crazy, from the moment that I experienced that, I'm like, I've always been really good with holding pain. It's kind of like, now I see it as an experience. Like, people are like, oh my God, can you go back to the IGA, or can you go back there? I'm like, yeah, I've been there heaps of times. I was like, honestly got no issues anymore. Like, there was a time in my life where it did affect me, but now I'm like, this experience literally rebuilt me into the woman that I've always needed to be. And I know that it's my purpose to help women and children in this life. When around DV, I always thought it was just around DV, but that's not the more healing that I've done. It's just generally, I want to help women and children.
Does it change something in someone? And you'll be able to answer this from your experience. You said the third time he strangled you, you just give up. You thought, this is it, I'm dying. To then survive that, like, does that change something in you today, just the way you operate or like your mindset?
In all honesty, I don't really think, like, me sitting here saying that, I almost died, and like I did, but like I don't know if my words even carry the weight of what I experienced that day. Like, even just explaining to you guys what that experience was like, I've left that very like quite surface level and to the in detail things that actually took place that day. But for me to sit here and say, like, I actually almost lost my life and I am very, very lucky to sit here and tell the story, of course it changes something within you. But also it's not something that I hold fear around. It's not something that I think about a lot, that moment. It's kind of like, I honestly think of it as like the most pivotal moment of my life, because if I didn't experience to that depth of what I went through, I wouldn't be able to relate to these women that are going through the exact same thing, maybe even something worse. So I'm almost grateful.
Wow. That's so strong.
I'm mind blown, hey?
Yeah. I'd love to obviously dig into the work you do now, because I hope that no one's listening to this has experienced anything like that. But I want to know about how you help the women you do today, and what are probably some of the small tricks that people might be going through a bit of pain or things like that. What can they apply in their everyday life that will help them?
So firstly, like, you can never heal in the same environment that's hurt you. And that isn't me saying, okay, leave the relationship, but something that both Ben and I, with the work that we do with both men and women, is if there's only one doing the work, there's always going to be one that so takes like where the other is. And if the other one isn't willing to come up, then there's a gap, right? And that gap is just disconnect, and you're going to just move further apart. But if there's the both of you, like, don't get me wrong, like, we are all not perfect. So for us both to commit and do the work, then of course there's going to be reconnection, you're going to rekindle and find love again. But if you're in a relationship where, such as DV, and you're the only one that's trying to do the work and they're just still going out partying, doing drugs or whatever, like, it's inevitable, right? It's really inevitable. So, I guess it's so hard to say like what to advise, because there's so many different situations. But what I would say is you can definitely never heal in the same environment that hurt you, whether that looks like completely separating from that relationship is very hard. It's not like you can just be like, okay, leave the relationship. It's not good for you. Like, somebody that's completely lost their self-worth and is so reliant on this person emotionally and physically, they're not going to go anywhere. Like, same as me. I still went back after that, and it's not until you're ready, and no one can tell you when that is.
How do you break through to them? Because you had friends telling you this wasn't right, you need to leave. Like, how do you, because sure the women you help now be in the same position.
Yeah. In all honesty, it's hard because you can't. It's not something that you can, Ben says this all the time and I love it. It's like, you as a coach, you're a great coach if you guide them to their breakthrough so they can understand themselves, because if you tell them that's where they need to go, they're not going to get there, So it's a good coach is really holding that space, holding a loving space, and them knowing that they're not doing this alone. And I think that's the most important part with our work is like, especially I know the men that work with Ben, the women that work with me, they can relate to us. They can relate to not feeling seen or heard from a therapist, because a therapist is reading off a textbook and we've actually lived the life experience. And so they feel a lot more open. The women I feel that I work with are a lot more open to telling me the things that they've gone through, that are going through, so they don't feel isolated. They know that they have me there holding their hand along the way. And because I've gone through what I've gone through, I've got evidence, right? I've walked that path. So they're more inclined to actually listen to me. The thing is, like, and I'm a big advocate of, I'm not going to listen to somebody that I don't want to be in the place that they're at in life. I'd never listen to somebody. So I also think that's the same as somebody going through DV. Like, if my mum hadn't experienced DV, why would I listen to what my mum's got to say? Because she hasn't even been there, So I think a huge part of the work that we do is making them feel seen and heard and understood of what they're going through is heavy, and it doesn't have to be justified because of X, Y, and Z. Like, yeah, they just feel seen and heard to talk to us.
What's like the biggest transformation that you've been able to play
What's
a part
that,
in?
sorry?
What's the biggest transformation that you've been able to play a part within someone you've worked with?
I'm actually going through a few at the moment. It actually brings tears to my eyes. I've got one woman at the moment. She was going through, I wouldn't say it was never physical abuse, but it was definitely psychological. There's kids involved. So it's really, really complex when kids are involved and it's their dad. But for most of her life, she's been married to this man and she has given them everything and had completely lost herself, didn't have boundaries, didn't even know who she was. And only just recently she's made huge decisions. And again, this is just from the work that we're doing, that she's now living a life on her terms. Like she's on a cruise at the moment. She's going to do the things that she loves, even if he's not there. And it's like she's starting to reinvent her life without him in it, because that's the hardest thing, is when you've got no purpose but that relationship, it's like you are so consumed in this that you don't know how to get out of it, because like you don't play your favorite sports anymore. You don't even know your favorite songs. Like you don't know who you are, because somewhere along the lines, they're like, you know, if you've played your favorite song, they'd be like, oh, that's a stupid song. Like, why are you even listening to that? Like, you're never good enough, ever. You're never good enough in any way, shape or form. So yes, I've got a few and they're all very different, like on very different levels. But I would say the most like profound for me is just watching these women step back into their power, watching these women go from not knowing who the fuck they are to now living a life that is on their own terms. They're making decisions for themselves. They're showing up for their kids again. So, yeah.
Do you have to take them to that area of purpose so they live that life without needing to feel attached to the partner? And then once they've kind of developed that self-identity again,
that's right, yeah.
Then they leave the partner rather than the other way around.
Yeah, well, it's definitely all identity work. Well, first and foremost, I talk about getting them out of survival, because the thing is, if you're still in survival, there's absolutely no way that you have the capacity to even work on yourself. So it depends on what level they're at. But if they have just gone through something similar that I've gone through, there's no way that I'd just be like, all right, this is the program and this is what we've got to work on. Identity level stuff, like that is not where we go. So we actually first and foremost make sure that they're safe. And it's like the little tiny things, like, are they showering? Are they able to, you know, get their kids to school? Like literally moving them out of survival so they can actually start looking at the things and reflecting on what they've actually been through, and having acceptance and self-forgiveness. Because the biggest part for my personal journey was I had done a lot of healing, but something that kept on coming up for me was I forgave him. I forgave him for what he did to me. I forgave him for what he did to my family, but I couldn't forgive myself, because I am a strong woman. And prior to that relationship, I was like, for him to knock me off like that, I was so angry at myself. I was like, how could I let somebody do that to me? So there's a whole process of self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, and also a grieving process that you have to go through to even start being able to do the work.
Fuck. You've stumped us. We had loads of business chat planned as well. I think it's so important that we give that.
Yeah, what I'm thinking now is, hopefully, right, no one listening to this podcast is going through that. But what there might be, they might have a friend who, as we're talking, there's someone in their brain that they're going, fucking old Sally. I think she's probably going through a fair bit of this at the moment.
Yeah.
As a friend or a family member for someone you think is going through that, what's the best way to have a positive impact?
Yeah. Look, I would probably say hold space for them, hold a loving space for them with no judgment, like love without judgment, because something that my mum and dad do incredibly well is it doesn't matter what I've been through in life, they are always there for me. They have, you know, as messy as it's always been, they've picked up the pieces and they've been there to hold me, you know. So friends, it's a little bit different, because I lost a lot of friends in that process, because it's kind of like, friendships are like, you know, that's toxic. I don't want that in my life. And they kind of will distance themselves, which I had a lot of that. Don't get me wrong, there's some friends that will stand by you just like family would. But I guess when it comes to what they can do is just hold a loving space, allow them to express things. Don't make them feel shame. Don't tell them what to do. Again, you can't tell somebody what to do in that state. They have to come to that realization. So again, it's just about giving them love. There's not much you can do but give them love.
It must be so hard not to try and just go into fix it mode and give advice mode as well. And if anything, does that push them further away from you potentially?
It does.
As a friend.
100% it does. Yeah. I find it a little bit hard, if I'm honest, with the women that I work with, because I'm so obviously experienced now and I can pick things out. There's sometimes I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, can't you see what's happening? Like, come on, just leave. Like, but I can't say that. There's no way I can say that. So I hold a loving space. And don't get me wrong, there's times where I feel like I have to give that hard push, that, I guess, stern word. I've had to do that recently, and sometimes that's what people need. Sometimes people get to a point where they're so stuck and they're like, there's no movement, where they're like, they need that little push. Again, I always pre-frame those conversations saying that it's coming from a place of love. It'll always come from a place of love, because I've been there. There is no judgment. But again, I just believe that you have to hold a loving space, because potentially it can push people away.
What are you excited about with your business and moving forwards? Like, what lights the fire in the belly for you?
What I find extremely powerful is working alongside Ben, because there's this beautiful circle that comes up for me. Is I've always wanted to help women and children. Ben, on the flip side, helps men become better men. But in reflection to that, he's actually helping men show up for his family, which in turn is helping the women. And it honestly gives me, I've got goosebumps now thinking about it. But the work that we do is so incredibly powerful. And I just know that the weight that our work does is going to be a ripple effect in this world. And it's just the very beginning for what we're doing.
And lightening up a little bit now, your content is awesome too.
Yeah, thank you.
I love it. The acting so
it's so full.
We put a lot of work into it.
Movie production, Ben stumbling. It's really good.
And Ben is Ben Lowe, for the listeners who was on a few weeks ago.
With a shotgun in his mouth.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, our lives, it's actually crazy. Like, Ben's, it's almost like I was living the opposite reflection of Ben's life, just with somebody else, obviously. And Ben was living this life, and then we've kind of got to this point where it's like we are a complete reflection of everything. Like, I'm telling you, everything we've been through. And I think that's why, you know, the work that we're doing is so powerful, because we are able to relate to both sides of the story.
I love the connection you guys would have in terms of the understanding that you've been through. I'm trying to feel it now. If my partner had been through that, I'd love to understand it, but you just can't, because you haven't lived it. You know, whereas you guys would have such deep awareness of what you both have been through, which is so special.
I think Ben is incredibly emotionally intelligent, and he holds a really great space for me. I'm definitely the one in the relationship after going through abuse that still has a lot of things that come up for me. So, for example, like, Ben is a loud person, just naturally he's quite loud. So when he does raise his voice, to me, it can trigger me and shut me down. So it's still things that I've got to work through from the abuse. Again, Ben being who he is and the amount of emotional intelligence that he has, he can hold a really great space. But I guess something that's really relevant here is a lot of people actually don't go into relationship after DV. So anybody that's experienced extreme DV, in similar cases to mine, they actually don't feel safe enough to go back into a relationship. They'll probably find themselves in relationships lasting 6 to 12 months. But it is very, very common for women not to go back into a relationship, and then also become hyper independent, which I also experience. And I don't need a man, I can do it all, because I can do it all myself. I can be quite masculine, not anymore, with somebody being with somebody very masculine. That definitely shook that out of me. But that's a whole process, and learning and unlearning unhealthy habits and things like that to be able to get to a point after abuse, because again, some men probably wouldn't know how to handle women that have gone through extreme abuse, and if they shut down in conflict, because even though my body knows I'm safe, that my body also takes me back to a time where I almost lost my life, or yelling meant danger. Yelling meant I need to get out of there, So there's still a lot around experiencing abuse that I work through. But having a relationship that is able to hold space and allow me to explore the things I need to explore within that definitely helps.
This is a perfect segue. We asked you for a hot topic, and I think your hot topic was more so in general, not just the DV sense, about the modern world and how women, the expectation, or it's glorified that women are this boss bitch and the masculine in a relationship, whereas your views are actually quite different. Would that be fair?
Yeah, 100%. I think that I'm definitely a prime example. My whole life, I've owned multiple different businesses. So I've always had that side of me being quite masculine. I definitely feel like I was more so masculine than feminine for a lot of my life. But what I've come to realize with the right person that brings that femininity out in you and is able to hold a strong, safe space for you to be feminine, I truly believe that that is the dynamics of a healthy, long-lasting relationship. You know, I was mentioning, like, with relationships, I see a lot of it with the women is like they want to be a boss bitch. We went through this whole season of like, boss bitch, I don't need a man, I don't need to rely on a man. And like, don't get me wrong, we don't. We actually don't. But do we want to? Do we want to do all that? No fucking way. I honestly don't want to be a boss bitch. I'm done with the boss bitch era. I'm like, Ben, you're the boss bitch now.
Why is that so important? Because it's something I went through with my partner. Like when we first met, I just moved to Australia. We went straight into COVID. I lost my income. I had no government support. I got down to my last $50 in my bank account. Yeah. She was the breadwinner. She kept me. I moved into her place rent-free. And the early years of our relationship, she was the masculine, you would say, until COVID finished and I got back into work. When we had kids, that was flipped on its head. And she's been the masculine since she left home at 16. Yeah. She's been in that boss bitch energy. She bought property young and everything. Yeah. Her world was turned upside down. And for the first year of us having our first child, she found it really, really difficult to relinquish power and control. And the relationship was never challenged because of it, but there were things we had to work through. 100%. And now she's fully stepped into that. I am so lucky that every single day I get to be home and be a mum and just live in that energy. We've now got a second daughter, but that was a long journey. Yeah.
Like, was that hard for you?
Fuck yeah. Like it was really hard because she would subconsciously try and regain power in other parts of the relationship where I always had the power and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? But it took me to step back and learn and reflect. Okay, well, she's relinquished all of this power here. I'm going to have to let her have some power in the different areas that I used to.
Yeah, 100%. I can completely relate to that and to where. So, sorry, just to clarify. So, is she now just mum? So she's not still in her boss bitch era?
No, so she has actually just
restarted.
She's just started a business.
Just started,
in the last few days, but she's like, keeps it arms. She's like, no, I don't want to grow it. I just want it to be a side hustle, a bit of purpose. She's like, I'm mum first and then this will come second.
But I think that's a beautiful reflection of how you show up in the relationship, because something that I say this about my relationship with Ben all the time is if you're safe in a relationship, I'm not saying that a woman shouldn't ever go out and follow her dreams. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like, I think having that choice makes that so special. Like the fact that she feels safe enough with you to just be a mum, and to then still want to explore and go and do, whatever she wants to do. I think that's so beautiful, and that says a lot about your relationship. Well, I guess what I mean about the boss bitch or hyper independent situation is like there's a lot of women out there that they genuinely basically like they keep everything separate. So they keep everything separate. Like even if they're in a relationship, they would never kind of like mold finances or mold their life completely because of fear. And like if, for example, there's a woman that goes into a relationship and they want to try, see what's going on there, there's always that subconscious, like, I don't need him because he's not paying the bills or, we're not getting married. I just feel like there's so many different views of things these days.
Yeah, it was the reliance piece.
Yeah.
It was so hard. And it took a lot of communication to kind of work through it. And the communication was like, what we're doing here, building Harwell, we put ourselves under insane amounts of pressure and stress. And we do it because we love it, but we do it to provide a better life for our family.
Of course.
And I'm like, part of my reason is I do it so she can be mum.
Yeah.
And I had to have the conversation. I was like, what do you want? Because I was like, because if you don't want to be mum and you want to go back to work, that's okay. I'll support that. Probably means I can dial down some of the pressure and stress on myself. So I'm like, if you want to, that's fine. I was like, But if you do want to be mum, I need you to fucking step into it and like just wear it and just be like, I am lucky I get to do this, rather than that
hard,
people thinking, oh, she's just a stay-at-home mum, which is the hardest job in the world.
And
I was like, that's the disconnect. I was like, you need to just own it.
I think that is the hardest part as well. Like, there's so much that she would have to, like, she'd grieve a version of herself of being like this woman that has, you know, achieved all these things, and she's been the achiever. And it's kind of hard to go back from achieving all these big things to just being a stay-at-home mum. Like, it's actually crazy with how the world looks at just being a stay-at-home mum. Like, it's crazy because being a stay-at-home mum, there's some days where I'm like, I would rather go to work. Like, I would much rather be going to work right now.
Yeah. I had to do a lot of work on myself.
Yes.
To fully be able to like understand that. Because sometimes it's easy to go into the basic mindset of I'm working so hard for you, you don't appreciate it.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is not the right answer. So
100%.
I had to do a lot of work on myself to understand the big changes that she was going through.
Of course.
To then be able to hold space when she did feel like that, and then you re-guide back to the vision and mission.
Of course, the bigger picture. Yeah. I just think a household definitely runs smoother, but the dynamic is so beautiful when there's two people that know the roles, you know, because like Ben would always say to me when we first met, we both had separate businesses, and I would actually, and I noticed that I would come home because I'm the leader. Like, I'm the leader of this business. Yes, he's the leader of his, but look, and this is my belief, but you guys wouldn't find it as hard going from, you know, your masculine, because you don't have to change into your feminine. Whereas I was coming home, stepping from my masculine into my feminine, and I really couldn't master that. Like, I couldn't just be like, click of the finger and just go into my feminine. It wasn't that easy for me because, again, as you guys know, business just doesn't switch off. So yes, I'm at home, and yes, I've got this relationship and this family, but like, I'm also still working. So I can relate to that. That was a conversation Ben and I had at the start of our relationship, and having two businesses with two sets of problems, I had to really understand what I wanted from life. And I had always wanted to be a mum. That's always what I wanted to do, but I just never trusted anyone enough to know, because I still want big things, by the way. Like, I don't just want to be a mum, but it's like, I don't want to be doing all the things. I want to be able to step in when I can and step out, but my whole focus was to be the kids, and that's why we ended up going into the same business.
What I've heard there, and I've kind of took a back seat, right, because I haven't got kids at all. So I've gone through that. It's just communication.
Yeah.
The whole way. Right? Like, if you can just say what you want and then take actions to get what you want, as long as everyone's on the same page, half of the world's problems will be fixed and solved.
Yeah, 100%. But it's also being truthful to yourself. Like, yes, there's definitely conversation and communication to add to that. But like, if you're not truthful within yourself, like as me, I'm like, here I am building a business, and I'm like, I truly just want to be a mum, but I'm like, I'm doing the opposite of just being a mum, right? Yeah. I didn't really know that's what I wanted until I continued to settle into the relationship, to know that I was able to let Ben control the ship, and that I didn't need to always be achieving things. Like, me, as in, like, I didn't have to be the face of it, you know? I can still achieve things. Achieving a smooth household plus running a business is an achievement within itself. So there's a lot of like surrendering, I would say.
I've absolutely loved this. Very different to our normal style, but I think it's been powerful. Thanks so much for how open you've been. I can imagine, you know, with the work you do now, it's kind of a skill you've learned as well. But I think the way you can speak about your story in so much detail is so powerful, to let other people in and understand, and hopefully not, you know, find similarities, but if they are in that position, someone else has been there, right? And seeing how successful you are, the awesome partner you've got in Ben, the kids you've got, there is another life afterwards, right?
100%.
And there's more to it as well. So yeah, thanks so much. If people want to learn more about, you know, who you are, what you do, where do they find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram is the main platform that I use. So Tiarny, and I'll spell it, Tiarnyls. So yeah, you'll find me on there.
Amazing.
Love it. You're an incredibly strong woman.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate that.
Hey guys, it's Jake and Lockie from Naturally Cooked Sunscreen, and we are pumped to be sponsoring the Two Blokes, One Business podcast.
We're on a mission to foster a generation of Australians who take sun safety more seriously and encourage it amongst their mates. You can find us at naturallycooked.com.au or follow us at Naturally Cooked Sunscreen.